Assalamu alaikum. In today's video, I'll be making a refutation of evolution based on the origins of body plans. Let's get started. This is a really important topic. So, here's the background. The neo Darwinian mechanism of evolution is that in the process of reproduction, minor changes in DNA being copied called mutations take place. Minor changes in DNA as it is copied or transferred from parent to offspring called mutations take place. Occasionally, one of these mutations will be beneficial. The organism with the beneficial mutation will be better able to survive and reproduce, hence, descendants of that organism will increase and take over the population. The neo Darwinian mechanism basically states that a series of mutations like this over time will build up, leading to origin of new species and eventually formation of new body plans. A body plan is the basic shape of members of an animal phylum or subphylum. This is basically the broadest or the highest category of differences between animals. The body plan is the general structure each individual organism assumes as it develops. Just to give one example in this regard, humans and fish are both vertebrates. They will have the same body plan, but fish and insects will have different body plan because they are different phylas. Now, I'll just give a background on this and I'll explain the problem here. In 1979, geneticists, I won't read their names, generated thousands of mutations to investigate the genomes of tens of thousands of fruit flies. In generating many thousands of mutants, thereby saturating the Drosophila genome, meaning they carry out the maximum test possible, they mutated the genome as much as possible. These scientists included variations in small subset of genes that specifically regulate embryonic development. Embryonic development is basically how the baby or the basically originally develops, the offspring starts to develop uh, as it forms and grows, right? They were basically rewarded with the Nobel Prize for this. Here is the problem in this regard. The issue here was that scientists mutated all the genes that were involved in the formation of the body plan. These mutations are supposed to lead to major changes. If Darwinian evolution is true, these type of mutations would lead to major anatomical or morphological changes and to new animals. But these mutations, that's what should happen in Darwinian evolution is true. But these mutations either lead to a dead animal or the same animal. It does not lead to a new animal. That's the problem for evolution. The scientist himself says the problem, and I can provide a reference for this if anyone wants. The problem is we think we have hit all the genes required to specify the body plan of Drosophila, he said, and yet these results are obviously not promising as raw materials for macroevolution. The next question then I guess is what are or what would be the right mutations for major evolutionary change? And we don't know the answer to that. So I think you can see the problem here. If Darwinian evolution is true, these mutations should be basically good raw materials for macroevolution, but they are not that. Here's the further problem in this regard. If mutating the genes that regulate body plan construction destroys animal form as they develop from an embryonic stage, which basically it leads to a dead animal, it does that, then how do mutation and selection build an animal body plans in the first place? In that case, they can't. The neo-Darwinian mechanism has failed to explain the generation of new genes and proteins needed for building new animal forms that arose in the Cambrian explosion. Here is the problem in this regard. To create significant changes in the forms of animals requires attention to timing. Basically, what is required is that the early changes should be done earlier to the body plan or to the animal. Earlier changes are what is required for macroevolutionary change, for major change. But those changes always kill the animal. They never result in a new animal, they just kill the animal. Later changes can work, but later changes don't change the body plan of the animal. This is the problem in this regard. And just to give some references on this regard, so you don't think I'm making this up, I'll give two references. As evolutionary geneticists Bernard John and George Miklos explain, macroevolutionary change requires changes in very early embryogenesis. Exactly what I said. Former Yale University evolutionary biologist Keith Thompson concurs only mutations expressed early in the development of organisms can produce large-scale microevolutionary change. So early change is required. Keep this in mind. Here is the problem. The problem is that early acting mutations inevitably damage the organism. The mutations that are required for major evolutionary change, the early ones, always damage the organisms, and the mutations that do not damage the organism cannot lead to major evolutionary change. As one of the founders of Neo-Darwinism, geneticist R. A. Fisher noted, such mutations, early mutations, are either definitely pathological, most often lethal in their effects, or they result in an organism that cannot survive in the wild state. Now, animal body plans are actually built in each generation by a stepwise process which takes place from the fertilized egg, how we start, to the many cells of the adult, how we grow from the embryo stage. The earlier stages in this process determine what follows. Thus, to evolve, any body plan mutations expressed early in development must occur, must be viable, and must be stably transmitted to offspring. Such early acting mutations of global effect on animal development, however, are those that are least likely to be tolerated by the embryo, and in fact have never been tolerated in any animals that development biologists have studied. Now, this is actually a massive problem here, and I'm referencing a mainstream evolutionary biologist, John F. MacDonald, to explain to you what the problem is. This problem has led to what Georgia Tech geneticist John F. MacDonald has called a great Darwinian paradox. Those genetic loci that are obviously variable within natural population, those things that can change, do not seem to lie at the basis of many major adaptive changes, meaning those changes that can happen, they don't do anything. While those loci that seemingly do constitute the foundation of many, if not most, major adaptive changes are not variable within natural population, meaning those genes that need to change, they simply can't change in natural population. So understand the problem here. What Darwinian evolution needs, it cannot happen, and what it does not need is happening. This is a massive problem for evolution, and to be honest, I gave references from mainstream evolutionary biologists in this regard. So, and you can look this up. This is not something I'm making up, but this is a massive problem and a paradox for Darwinian evolution for the reasons you can see that mainstream evolutionary biologists themselves acknowledge. The genes that can change, that can vary without killing the organism or damaging the organism, don't do anything. And the genes that need to change for new species or new animals to evolve or for major adaptive changes to take place, when we change those genes, the animal inevitably dies. This is the problem for Darwinian evolution. What it needs, it can't happen. What it doesn't need actually happens. This is the problem. Inshallah, I hope you have enjoyed this video. Again, this is a simple but powerful argument against Darwinian evolution. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Till next time, Assalamu alaikum.